Thank you.
You don't need a pen, right?
Hmm?
Do you need a pen and paper?
No.
I'm excited for you.
Huh? You're excited? Yeah, close the door.
Live now.
Okay.
All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen who have joined us on this Dr. Fundi platform. My name is Dr. Fundi Lenyati. I'm the host on the channel. As you know, this is the month where we celebrate women who are doing great things, phenomenal women who are serially breaking those glass ceilings, women who have been able, to maneuver themselves, against all odds, with patriarchy very much, a reality in most workplaces, with, many other things that are stacked against women. And yet we have people like my guest today who have actually risen to the top. And who am I talking about? Well, today, my special guest is Miss Zipporah Maubane. She is my guest, and I would like to tell you a little bit about her, so that you know why I actually decided that she must be the person who comes and inspires us today. Well, Zipporah is a group executive for marketing at the JSE listed technology company, which is Altron. She's an experienced professional in building brands. She's occupied senior positions in marketing and communications in a career that spans over 25 years. She's worked for top brands like Coca-Cola Company, British Petroleum, which is BP, Sasol, and also logistic company. So when you look at those companies, you can see it's different industries, from logistics to oil and gas to fast-moving consumer goods, and now she's with a technology company, which is Altron. And she joined Altron about 3 years ago as the first woman to be in the group executive team of Altron. So she's a woman of first, like I had said. And being part of that team, they have a task, they have a task to turn around the company. And her responsibility within that, was to build a brand that would ensure that what they promise to the customers out there in terms of customer experience is actually aligned with, the One Altron strategy. And she has driven communication strategies since she joined the organization, so that people understand that Altron of today is actually a private, independently run, company that is, like I said, it's listed on the stock exchange. It's no longer a family business that it used to be before they joined the company. So Altron is now an independently run business that advises both private and public sector organizations on the implementation of technologies for digital transformation, managed services, smart Internet of Things, health tech, and fintech. And, when you look at Zipporah 25 years later since she started working, you would not believe that she started as an SABC reporter. She was an SABC reporter running around looking for news. And from there, she actually was one of the first spokespeople in government, in 1994. She and the other, communication specialists, including a friend of mine, Lincoln, who is now at Standard Bank, they were in that first group of people who did not have a template, about what a spokesperson should be doing. And she will tell us more about her experiences at that point. And in terms of qualifications, She's an alumni of University of Limpopo, what we used to call TEF, but also she is a chartered, chartered marketer from the Chartered Institute of Marketing in the UK. That's a very, very prestigious type of qualification for anybody who is serious in this space of marketing and communication. So with that introduction, Zipporah, welcome to the Dr. Fundi channel.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fundi. Wow. I'm so excited to be here. And thank you so much for that introduction. It's quite amazing to listen. Yeah.
We needed to give it all like that. You know, I'm sure there's more you're going to tell us, but for people to know that you have earned being here, you know, as one of the phenomenal women of South Africa, one of the people who sleeps, eats, and drinks, you know, brands, you know, taking brands from a certain point to another point, transforming things, you know, and you're going to tell us more about that. But anyway, to kick off our discussion, Zipporah, how do I call you? Do I call you Zipporah or Zips? You know, I saw people saying Zips. We're going to be looking, we're going to be watching. So, do I say Mahomo? Which name do I use?
Okay, Zipporah.
Zipporah. Okay. All right, Zipporah. All right. Just to kickstart our discussion, who is Zipporah?
Okay. So I was born in Hammarskraal, the last born daughter in a family of 10. And of course, some of my siblings have since passed on, my sisters and brothers. And my father and my mom, Sefako Motwa, that's my father. They were very special. And in Hammarskraal, they really made their way through and left a very big societal impact in terms of their contribution to the community of Hammarskraal. They were entrepreneurs. So I grew up, you know, in this family where every time during school holidays, you just had to go to the shop and work, you know. So that's where I grew up. I grew up in Hammarskraal. And I was actually born at the Jubilee Hospital. And it was still very brand new, that hospital in Hammarskraal. So I went to school, primary school in the village, New Easterus, right there in Hammarskraal. And then I went to high school outside of Hammarskraal at a boarding school. And from then on, I went to the university. And I made friends along the way. You know, some of them I still keep in touch with. So it's been quite a, you know, quite something special to have been in boarding school and meet friends, and still today you're connecting with them, both in high school and at university. Yeah. Yeah.
All right. Let's go back to Hammarskraal. So you said your family was, you know, a very influential, you know, powerful family in Hammarskraal as entrepreneurs. All right. Now, you know, when you're driving to Limpopo, there's a sign that says Maubane. You know, just, you know, when you're approaching Hammarskraal, has it got anything to do with your surname?
Yes. So let me. Okay. So my Maubane is my married name. So I'm Motwa in terms of my maiden name. So the Motwa family in the village in Easterus, just on the other side of Hammarskraal. Yeah. So on the northern side of Hammarskraal, that's where you see the off-ramp Maubane. Yes. And that's our village. That's my husband's family, the clan of the Maubanes is right there. Yes, that's correct. So yes.
Married to royalty.
Yes, I am.
All right, that's good. All right. So you painted a picture, you know, of this family, you know, that's, you know, doing well, you know, as entrepreneurs. But what influences would you say came from that, you know, family of yours in terms of the values, principles, you know, that actually carry you today?
Mm-hmm. So I saw a lot of hard work, but I also saw a lot of courage, right? So my father and my mom, they were the first family. I wasn't born at the time when they settled in the village. they were one of the 10 families that were first to settle in that village. The village was actually just a bush, so they were the first ones to settle there. And my father was working for PPC Cement at the time, but then he had the courage to stop working and thought, okay, this village is growing. Let me set up some businesses, because with the village growing, it means there are a lot of people coming in and they're going to need a lot of supplies, building materials, food, etc. So he started the business, general dealer, a building material supply kind of outlet. At some point, he was trading also in coal, and there was also a butchery. So he actually thought about everything that a new community would need and went about supplying that. Obviously working together with my mother. We quite a formidable team. And the village has grown so much now. It's so big, but he left a lasting impact in the sense that he just had the courage. He was not educated, but he had the courage to think, okay, what can we do? My spouse and I, what can we do? And as my siblings, some of my siblings were much older, they began to help in the shops. And I was born like 5 years later after they had settled there, and they started to, and he was also very involved in school committees, they called them at the time. Yeah. Now they are called governing bodies, right? Yeah. So he was very much involved, and the first primary school to be built in that village, at the time he was the chairperson of the school committee, yeah. And went out of his way working with other members of the community to find the best principal for that school, Mr. Matlari. I think everybody knows about him. He was a formidable kind of a leader in the primary school and got the best teachers. And that's where a lot of us started in that community, in that school, Comba Primary School. So that was his contribution.
So it's not the kind of people who occupy a leadership position in the school, but they take their kids elsewhere. Made sure that the school that he's looking after is actually the school where the kids go in, so that then people Absolutely. Know that. Yeah. Okay. Lovely. But now, as the last born, would you describe yourself as growing up a typical last born child in a family of 10, or actually you grew up differently?
I had a lot of attention. Hey, I remember my 10th birthday party was like the talk of town. It was still a photos. Yeah, so it was like a big party when I celebrated 10 years. So also, with my family, having so many sisters and brothers, you start to then start having strong bonds with their children, because so you're so down there. They're 20 years, 15 years older than you. By the time they get married, you're still young. They have kids and you're still young. So then you start to develop a bond. I know the first grandchild in our family is 2 years younger than me. So you see what I mean? So, although
it's not the guest that I interviewed a few days ago.
Yes, my niece, Dr. Theo. Yes, she's my brother's daughter. So she's only, I think, 8 years younger than me, or something like that. Yeah. So, so we grew up together, and then you have a bond. So in terms of generational continuity, I'm the youngest in terms of the aunts, but I also have close bonds with the nephews and the nieces. So you can see that the relationship building going into the next years, I'll still be there guiding them, as the aunt.
So you're that aunt that is a favorite for, all these nieces and spoils them at times.
Yeah, very, very attentive, very interested in what they're doing. And they're also interested. Yeah, in everyone is interested in the well-being of each member of the family. But the experience that I've had in terms of how I saw my father lead the family together with my mother, something that prepared me for I think, the initial characteristics of maybe leadership at a very young age. So my father we would have family meetings, and there will be issues around the table that we needed to give attention. And he will obviously start with my oldest brother, and then we'll go around the table. You know, I'm the youngest, right? They at the end of the table. So, I mean, the energy in the room, so a little bit tired by the time they get to me, you know.
Yeah.
But my father insisted that I really had the opportunity to express my opinion on the matter on the table, but also to actually understand that I mattered, hey, and I had equal rights to the conversation, right?
So
And
ageism was not practiced in that house. I'm saying
no,
age,
no.
yeah. So everybody from the youngest to the oldest, they had time to give their opinions on things. Eh?
Absolutely, absolutely. But the thing is, he's so to it, you know. And even when maybe the energy around the room was like, oh, let's pack up and go. Oh, do you have something to say? No. So he would also make sure that everybody sits down and let's hear what she has to say. But he was very fair like that, and I was quite inspired by his style. But the other thing is that in our family, there's a lot of girls. So my parents had loads of daughters and only 2 sons, right? So, but the most important thing that they did for us was to actually ensure that we go to school, right? Equally, make sure that the opportunities that my brothers had, also us as the girl children in the family, had those opportunities around education. And I remember my father used to tell us that, you know, his friends, because remember, he was much older, born 1928. Yeah, his friends and some of the family members, they were like, oh, you know, you don't really have to take them to school, you know, they'll soon get married and leave, you know, so just focus on your sons, you know, but he was not into that, what we'd call, you know, gender discrimination, we call that today. Yeah, no, he was completely not into that. He just believed that we are deserving of all the opportunities, and he worked right up until he was in his late 60s. You know, because obviously the Latlemeki are still needed to go to school. So just to make sure that we, you know, we all are over the hurdle and we have what we needed to approach life. Yeah.
All right. So that type of leadership at a home, where you were given a voice, even if you were the last one, you know, in terms of age, what did it do to you in terms of, you know, being able to occupy spaces and say your say?
So I went into the world believing that I'm worthy of a seat around the table. I'm worthy of having my voice heard. And I would find it a little bit, you know, surprising in situations where the leader would just like, you know, call you all around the table, but not necessarily open the discussion for input, you know. So I would find it absolutely strange, but I would not keep quiet. Then I'll put my hand up and said, you know, a question, or can I ask something for clarity? You know, so I've been doing that all throughout because I saw it being practiced, and there was nothing wrong with that. Actually, it's a good thing. Yeah.
No, actually, no, that's very good. That's very good. All right. So when you were still in, you know, early years of schooling, you know, junior schooling, before you got to matric, what did you want to do? You know, later on in life, what career did you want to pursue?
I actually tried the career to be an optometrist.
Optometrist.
Yeah, so yes.
What was the attraction? And I know nothing wrong with choosing optometry, but I just want to know for you, what was the attraction?
You know, I thought
brands of glasses, that Ray-Bans and all of those things.
But obviously, I mean, I think the first prize was, you know, to be able to qualify to get into medical school, you know. So that I didn't have the right marks, right? So the next option was physiotherapy or optometry. So I studied first year optometry. It didn't go well.
Where was this? Medunza?
No, at University of Limpopo, at Tufloop. Tufloop has great, they've got a science faculty. That's very good, actually.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, so it didn't go well. So I redirected. And
What
then
happened? What happened? What did you do? The adjustment from
the
from Africa.
adjustment, the adjustment, and not really, to be honest, not really applying myself very
Yeah.
well and
Yeah.
being distracted. So yeah. It,
All right. But
go
there
on.
must have been some lesson that you learned out of that, though.
Yeah, time you waste, you never regain it back. That's one thing that I learned.
Yeah.
So, and I also learned that you can always have options and develop an interest. If you are flexible and agile, you can move quickly and concentrate on something else. And after that disaster of my first year, and then I studied English literature. I made it my business that I'm going to be very good at it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And so you got your undergrad from TEF.
Yes.
So what was it? What kind of degree was
So
it?
English literature.
Yeah.
So by then I was convinced that I'm going to be a lecturer now, in languages and, and just be an academic,
Yeah.
But then I started to see now this whole thing in the media, television, and I see people reporting and people speaking on behalf of others, So then I started to be curious and I inquired. And then I found the right course to study with Damelin College.
Yeah.
They're still going very strong. So I started public relations with them. Right. And then after that, then in no time, then I got into the SABC.
Yeah.
And in the SABC, there was a lot of training around journalism. So the two actually worked very much together. It gave me a very unique position in terms of what was to come. I didn't know at the time, but then what was to come, then I could see that, it was not really a disaster not to have studied optometry.
Yeah, it was just a redirection. The guy upstairs was redirecting you to something that he thought, is more aligned to, your talents and gifts and everything.
Exactly. I would like to believe so, but it should not be encouraged. When young people go to university, they should study and pass.
All right. So now I guess when you joined SABC, must have been what is it the transition years between 1990 and 94, or is it even before then?
So I joined the SABC after our democratic elections. Okay. So 1994, around June, So the SABC was lily white, but the equipment, we had the SABC till today has got, the broadcasting capacity of world-class broadcasting institutions like BBC and CNN. So we had veteran journalists from the BBC coming into the SABC to give us, the new journalists and the new employees, some kind of training, like really accelerating our understanding and our skills in the field. So it was just, you can imagine where you come from, village, whatever, they see you on TV, they've never, you become so humbled by the opportunity itself that you concentrate on just really making it work and making sure that you do right, you do justice to that opportunity. So everything was still new. A lot of us Black people in the SABC, few of us, very new. The opportunities, the social status you gain just by being in that institution, everything was so new and so exciting at the same time.
And it was a new South Africa as well,
Absolutely, it was new South Africa as well.
The promise that it came with, and you guys were at the forefront like that. But then, how long did you stay at SABC? Because you moved on to being a spokesperson of a particular department. Can you just take us through?
That transition. So at the SABC, I was on the radio side. I was not on the television side. So when you work as a radio journalist, you have because you're not carrying a lot of equipment with you and all that, you're carrying just a small radio. You have an opportunity to actually have a lot of conversations with a lot of people. And I was a sport radio journalist. So I was covering sport, cricket, and I remember us being given like training, you know, to help us understand rugby, you know. So,
Coming from Australia, rugby is not a big thing.
you know, absolutely. So, yeah, so understanding rugby and actually writing about it, that's where, you know, now the skill of taking something that is technical and writing it in a simple way for people to understand, that's where I really started to have that training. But then I remember he's late now, Mvuzo Mbebe.
Yes.
He was with the National Sport Council. And I was interviewing him a lot and all that. And he said, you know what, look, there will be an opportunity in the office of the Minister of Sport. At the time, it was Steve Chwet.
Yes.
You know, so look out for it and apply, you know. So it was still in the sport community, but then outside of the SABC into the government. Then I applied and I got the opportunity and I started working there. The original spokespeople.
As a spokesperson. Now, just tell us, because you see now, when we look at spokespeople now, we're not sure exactly what are they supposed to be doing there. You know, most of them. Obviously, others are very good at what they do, but others, they're just there to deny, no comment, and we never really get to know what's happening. So, what's the role of a spokesperson in a department?
Okay, so and I'm going to tell you about the role of a spokesperson in the new democratic South Africa, because it was unique, right? So you needed to know what was going on with regards to the policies and all the acts that were being changed through the parliamentary system to be in line with democracy and be inclusive, you know? So you needed to understand that first and foremost, and understand who are the drivers of those programs in the department, and then have relationships with them. But also you needed to be aware of the political party dynamics, the ANC, and who your minister, I mean, obviously I was never in exile, you know, so I needed to really get to understand quite quickly the ANC environment, and obviously get to have a connection with my principal, the minister Minister Chwete at that time. But the key work was around understanding what laws were being changed to reflect the new South Africa, to be, especially in sport. Remember, there was so much of separation and lack of participation by Black people in different sporting
and all of those things.
Yes, absolutely. So the political leader who was in charge was absolutely the great person for the job, because he was up for driving change in sport by changing the laws and making sure that the body's transformation, the quotas, sport quotas, and all that needed to happen. So as a spokesperson, first and foremost, you needed to understand that, so that you are ready with the story. You can be able to write, you can be able to advise when for the minister to issue a statement. And it was at the time of Nelson Mandela as well. Yeah, so he was the principal political leader, and everyone needed to find their way around how they you know, share a message. And it was the era of the Rainbow Nation, you know, so the whole world had, you know, its eyes on South Africa in terms of what they were doing. So it was a very exciting time, and we were just so proud. You know, you saw spokespeople in suit and tie, and you know, the ladies, everybody just like took everything so seriously. But we were so proud, and we were so careful about ensuring that the messages were the right one, because you're not necessarily working with a transformed world. Inside the department, you had a lot of white civil servants that were still there. In broadcast institutions, you had a lot of still white journalists and editors. So you just needed to be careful and move swiftly with, you know, having, you know, your eye on the goal, which was like, okay, you know, we're changing things, right? So when we change things, this is how we behave, and this is how we drive the change. So it was absolutely amazing. It was a privilege.
All right. And I remember during that time, I mean, there was the big thing, Nelson Mandela being taken to court by Louis Lage, who was
Yes.
Supremo of rugby at the time.
Mhm.
And we all thought that Madiba would not agree to go to court, being taken by this guy who was a racist. And there he was saying, I want to make an example, that irrespective of your level, or station in society or in government, if you have to appear in court, you must appear in court. So, and I'm sure your department, had to do a lot of communication around those kind of things, maybe even convincing him not to appear in court.
No, but he is, I mean, President Nelson Mandela was quite clear that no one was above the law, which is, I think, a universal principle. Yeah, no one is above the law. So if required, he was very much willing to go and appear in court, but also the principles of democracy and what the issue on the table was all about. It was really hitting at the core of our newfound democracy. So he was so convicted that, absolutely nothing wrong with him going there to really articulate the point of the government at the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then there was the Rugby World Cup coming up in '95, it was just about a year.
I that, yeah.
You had already joined by that time.
Yes, so you know that iconic photograph of the President Nelson Mandela in the rugby at the ground, right inside the pitch.
Wearing number 6.
Yes, with the captain at the time.
Francois.
Yes, so I actually have a photo before, the iconic photo with them. So I was right there, ready with my microphone and, just waiting for the action and, to get the right sound bite. And so I have a photo of that action there. Yeah, excited, everybody was excited, yeah. So hence we got the training on understanding rugby because we needed to report on it. Yeah, so it was incredible, amazing. Yeah.
And you guys had to be in Pretoria, and then you must be in Cape Town and all of that. I mean,
new lifestyle, right? Flying, new lifestyle, this flying up and down, and it was just a new thing. Like everybody just understood what it meant, this newness, what it meant. It was nothing to be taken seriously. You really had to show up properly because so many things were new, and you take care of something that is new, and you make sure that you do the right thing. Yeah.
Fast forward to 25 years later, when you sit now as one of those original spokespeople, and you look at the majority of the people, in that trade, are you proud that they are doing that responsibility justice, or you think maybe there's this and that they need to improve on?
So, 25 years later, I think for every single South African, we have, one or two things that we are not happy about with regards to the government, and how things are panning out. So, like every citizen, I do find myself in a position like that. But looking at the spokespeople, I know there are quite a few that are very good and are trying to do right, But some of them, I actually do wonder if they know what's happening inside their departments. Because, for you to be able to churn out information about your organization or your department, you need to know what's going on. And you need to have a nose for a potential story, potential good story. And if you don't know what's happening, how are you going to get that sense that, oh my goodness, Minister, there is a story. Look at this. Look at the statistics coming out. The program that we launched 3 years ago has had so much impact. These are the statistics. These are the analytics. Let's do a story. Oh, it's out, So I'll just make an example with, big pronouncements that come out from the president. We know that the Solidarity Fund was announced and all that. And, what is happening? But there has been so much silence in terms of what's happening, And you do not need to wait for 3 months to start to talk about what's happening. There's so much opportunity for news. If the money is coming in bucket loads, tell us this money is coming. Give us the update, If the money is beginning to be spent on this and that, give us a story, So the storytelling is that art of wanting people just really to know and understand what's happening. Once you have that interest, it becomes easy for you to think, look around and like, okay, this is an opportunity for me to talk. This is an opportunity, or perhaps this is not a good story necessarily, but maybe it's an opportunity for us to talk about it anyways. Things didn't go right there, So that's what I see lacking. There's always such a yawn, a silence before we get to hear what's happening. Big pronouncement and announcement, but what I see lacking is the follow through and updating us. And you compare that.
And the whole thing about negative news that are also out there, which could have encountered, or at least balanced if there was proactive positive. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Right, so how long did you stay in that role as a spokesperson of that department?
Over 2.5 years. Then I went to the UK. 1998.
What was the attraction? What was the attraction in the UK?
So the UK is the attraction. The attraction was to live there with the possibility of actually just having the British citizenship and also gaining experience in first world countries in terms of how they do their marketing and communications and just see the world. But obviously it takes a little bit of you get to be, you can never be that sure, hey? So you just need a little bit of courage and go in there. So when I got to the UK, then I started to work for this logistics company, which in the UK, you need to remember that Black people are in minority. So all the excitement of South Africa with the laws that were affirming us Black people, driving employment equity, driving the advancement of women, there was nothing like that there. What they have, it's a law called equal opportunity. That's all, but the majority of people there are white people. So I walked into a company that had great business that was so entrenched in the community across the UK because it was about parcel distribution for the B2B, for businesses, but also for individuals. So, and with those kind of businesses, particularly on the business to consumer, you find small businesses that were linked to the company that were delivering in a number of communities. So you end up with Zipporah having a small operation here linked to this big company that I was working for, but in this community, and then the next community is Zipporah's daughter, so it was just like interesting to see the dynamic of how first world countries run these kind of operations with, sort of like family involvement, but yet quite things are so professional and there's a lot of governance and, but for me, excitingly so was just the opportunity to get that professional employment opportunity in corporate in the UK. That was a good thing for me.
But you also studied there because isn't that the time where you enrolled for the chartered marketer thing? Yes,
I studied there, and the company actually invested in my education on that front because to be considered a marketer, a serious one, a professional marketer, you need basic professional qualifications. It doesn't matter whether you have a master's in marketing, but you still need the Chartered Institute qualification because that is based on what happens in the workplace, right? Not on what you learn at university. So the exams that we undertook were really about things that I would be dealing with in the office. So I would say that if, I sharpened my marketing skills there. I was with that company for something like 4 years or so or more, and worked with a very small team. But the director, the boss at the time, was so involved. The CEO had been away. We saw her every day. So it was just like a great environment for somebody to develop as a professional in marketing. You get to study, you get to work with people who are real experts in your team, and also you get the opportunity to showcase what you're good at. I remember when I was at the one of the highlights when I was at DPD. The company launched a state-of-the-art distribution center that invested a lot of money, over £1 million into the distribution center. And it had this amazing technology. So when you go into the distribution center to see where the parcel will go, and there'll be a ticket put on the parcel, and it will go through on the belt, and it will be, it will be scanned, and depending on where it was going, it will go this way or that way, so everything was so automated. It was just mind-blowing. So we took a journalist on the tour of the distribution center. So I was now at the front because I came with the wealth of experience of working with the media from South Africa. So I was at the forefront of that, writing the plans in terms of how things are going to work, how we're going to share the media conference. And, I was just feeling so great about now bringing in my expertise, into the environment. And again, the company later launched the first track and trace technology. So when you're expecting a parcel, your courier will send you a number, and then you'll go onto the website of the company to see where your parcel was, step by step. That is in the early 2000s, and we marketed that, we wrote about it. It was just amazing.
All right. And so your intention was to become a British citizen, but then, you actually managed to become a British citizen.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, okay. But then you came back.
Yeah.
I thought you wanted to be there, and actually make that your home forever. So why did you guys?
You know what? Let me tell you something. So coming back, going there the intention was never to, and my two daughters, very young at this stage. So, you can read the social politics and social dynamics of a country, when you're a foreigner. And you ask yourself questions. Do I really want my children to grow up here and grow up with this social political dynamics onto their heads? Or should they go and grow up in their home country and experience what it's like being an African? And then when they would like, then they can go and see the world, right? Okay. So that was the decision. We came back. It was never intention to stay there forever. No, first of all, it's so cold, eh? It's very cold. So we came back and had a time with the Minister Khadebe at the Department of Transport there. But I didn't stay long there because I was just so into working in corporates. That's when I went to BP to work there at BP.
British Petroleum. So you still wanted this connection with something British.
I mean, it gave me such an advantage, right? Because then, communicating with the head office in London, it was so easy. I mean, I understood the culture, and I was just perfectly connected in terms of how the British conduct business. So settling into BP was quite easy for me.
But the transition from logistics industry to now oil and gas, how easy was that transition? In your role, obviously as a marketer and a communicator, but this is a different industry. You've never been there. And I mean, it's an industry that still attracts a lot of flack from environmental risks, and the stuff that companies like Shell do in Nigeria and other places, messing up the environment. So I'm sure going in there, you have to think about some of those challenges in terms of how do you advance the interests of the company whilst trying to deal with the lobby groups.
So let's start with the transition. The transition is always like a tricky phase in anyone's career when they move from one industry to the other. So you have to really have a tight and fierce discipline around immersing yourself into that industry with quite quickly as well. right? And after that, then you should be clear as to what needs to happen, the strategy of the organization. And from where you are sitting as a marketing and communications expert, what do you need to do to deliver on the strategy? So looking back now, because I've changed industries so much, I think that has been the formula for me to quickly go in, familiarize, and at times it's not easy, right? It's not a straight line. Familiarize and then get to understand the strategy, get to understand what needs to happen. That part is a critical part. And then start working on it. And then start to also develop relationships within the organization, be visible. People can come to you, just get yourself into the organization, right? So that's the one thing around transition. But wow, the oil industry, when it comes to environmental issues and the pressure groups, wow, for me, that was eye-opening. Because then I remember when I was at BP, there was an incident in Mozambique, right? Where, a family actually suffered burns, right? Yeah. Because they bought, paraffin in big containers and they stored it in the home, and the paraffin was bought from a BP outlet, so there was a lot. I mean, nobody died in the family, but the burns were so very serious. Yeah, I think first degree burns, you call that, right? Yeah. Yeah. So BP, when BP South Africa was responsible for that country, the market, right? SADC, I think. Yeah, SADC. So then it meant the communication needed to be driven by us. So then, so you're faced with two things there. To what extent do you become open and transparent with what exactly happened? And you, as the supplier of the product, your responsibility to ensuring that people who procure or buy your product, do they understand anything about how to keep it safe? Because clearly it was for domestic use, right? Yeah. So really, thankfully, BP was quite clear on those kind of things. They take the responsibility, but then you need to move quite quickly, connect with the families, and ensure that the media is informed in terms of what you're doing, the care and help you're giving the family. But at the same time, you have the pressure groups on your neck, right? Now they will go out and put the pressure on you, say that you're an irresponsible company. And BP has had these challenges. We know in 2010, there was a huge spill there, US, North America. So crisis management was again one of the skills that I started to learn there at BP in terms of because there were a number of instances where the company had to come in and be open and transparent about the role in something that happened in a community.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Yeah. And but you didn't stay long at BP. You went to another, business in the same sector, which is Sasol.
Yes, Sasol was had just rebranded itself, just very attractive. It was the brand to want to work for. But when I got to Sasol, the interesting thing was how much they were referencing the work that we have been doing at BP. And I was like, wow, surprised. I was thinking, my goodness, we were sitting there, everybody aspiring to work for this brand. Meantime, they're using us, BP, then as a benchmark. Yeah, so it was surprising. So normally, and it goes on to show that, a brand needs to be built on something that is tangible, that is so intrinsic to its culture, that people, when they come into that organization, they're not shocked and they're thinking, oh, from outside, this brand is giving me this experience. But when I come inside, it's the total opposite, So that's another key thing that as marketing experts, we need to just really be conscious of that. Of course, you have to build your brand to the best ability you can. Let it shine, let it be a winning brand. But you need to put the same focus inside the organization. So when I got to Sasol was going through a change it was great, making the right appointments at the executive level, Black women, but it was a big company. I think it had about 10 business units. Great. I mean, a lot was going on there in terms of change. And, the business unit that I was working in was the oil business unit. So responsible for manufacturing of lubricants, diesel, petrol, and managing the service stations, right? So imagine you're a marketer. Is there anything really exciting in marketing a service station? But of course, I like industries. I like industries. I'm not really an FMCG person, but I had fun at the Coca-Cola company. But I like working. Yeah, but I like working in marketing for industries that are really focused on mainly B2B, because it's like really finding that time to communicate things that are so complex, and just getting the right thing, the right message about stuff in there and communicating it. Anyway, so the oil business, we had that Gluk advert going on. Yeah. So when I joined, there had been, I think, 2 creative campaigns on the very same thing, the Gluk. So I came in, and I was, I think, the last person to do the Gluk creative campaign for a long time, until 2 years ago that they did it. So it was again fascinating to take such an original concept of that young boy with the car, and then think about where we were then. I think it was 2008 when I joined Sasol, and think about, okay, so where are we at? This Gluk iconic advert was like 6 years before me. So how do you then evolve it to make it relevant and exciting as we did a lot of great work, but I don't think we ever matched the iconic first iteration of the Gluk. Yeah, I must be honest.
Yeah. But again, coming, into Sasol, and then, Sasol creates those things from coal, right? They've got technologies of converting whatever from coal to create the fuels. And in a country where, or in a world where, again, the issues of climate change and all of that, Greenpeace and other, so again, were there any issues around how to communicate the interests of your organization, yet having to deal with the pressures of the damage or alleged damage that your industry was doing to the environment?
Yeah. So actually, at Sasol, that's where I came across the whole concept of sustainability.
Yeah.
So we, at the time, embarked on a program and look at the business and look at all these carbon emissions that are coming out because of the process of turning coal. There's a place called Secunda. I don't know if you've been there, but that's where the largest refinery of Sasol is situated. Yeah, and that's where the conversion from coal to many other products happen. Obviously, in the process, loads of emissions come out. And I remember at the time they were saying that the emission, the volume of these bad emissions were like one of the top 5 in the world in terms of how bad it was for health, for people who live in Secunda and all that. So
there's a country there called Mbalenhle, not far from there in Secunda.
Oh, really? Have you been there?
Yeah. Well, I went to spend a week, 2 weeks with a GP in my final year of medicine. So he left me with a practice for 2 weeks. And I inhaled the bad air from
yeah, those carbon emissions. Yeah. So then the company had a strategy around how do you then take those emissions and make good use of them. Obviously a very complex scientific concept, and I think they're probably still busy with that there at Sasol. But because I was in the business unit, I was concerned about driving volume
Yes.
at the service stations. Let get people to come and not go to any other service station, but come to our service station. So the marketing, all those specials, the famous special that you get at every service station today is the pie and Coke one. Yeah. So, and I got to understand how it came about. What's the inside, the research behind that pie and Coke special? So, so it was absolutely interesting in finding so many things that are a contributing factor for a person to stop at a particular service station compared to that other one. So marketing insights and really turning this product, fuel, petrol, making it such a consumer issue that people have got to think twice. Like, you know what? I'm actually going to go to Sasol because I can get 50 ppm diesel there. So it means that it's got absolutely less. It's so good for my engine. My engine will perform better with a particular brand. So you had to think about how to get people to understand what is 50 ppm and why it's good for their vehicle and not that other brand. So absolutely great. Yes. But the interesting thing is how each brand used technology to define its unique selling proposition to the consumer. So technology was at the heart of it all the time. Nice.
All right. So you stayed for how long there at Sasol?
Almost 4 years. I think 3 years.
So you've got this 4-year thing, around 4 years, you start wanting to look at something. No, I'm not saying that past is something that must be extrapolated into the future, but I'm just talking about the past. Okay, let's move on. Let's move on. You left the oil and gas thing, and you went into one of the top brands in the world. In the FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods industry, which was Coca-Cola, right? You joined the Coca-Cola company, and just tell us what was your responsibility there?
So actually talking about the attraction. So I went there, you know how the process is like, you get called, there's an opportunity. So you go through interviews and interviews and interviews. So when talking about the work we've been doing there at Sasol, because it was all, remember I was in the consumer facing part of Sasol. So I already had now a leg into the consumer industry of beverages, because then I had so much understanding of the consumer mindset, right? Anyway, so moving into Coca-Cola, a completely different world, right? And this iconic brand, you come in there, the experience outside and inside the same. In 3 months, I was already on my way to the head office in Atlanta to get, a deep dive into the brand and to the culture of the organization. And so the company at the time had already foreseen the challenges that they were going to be facing around the environment in terms of the damage that the packaging of beverages, particularly Coca-Cola beverages, they have on the environment. Also sugar. The amount of sugar in the beverages. So the company already,
the consumer market that was starting to become very health conscious.
That's right. So then I went in there to work as a head of sustainability. How are we going to ensure that as a Coca-Cola, we are sustainable into the future, given all these threats that are coming around the environment, around the health, around water scarcity. So the company was facing quite a lot of challenges around key ingredients that make their beverages #1 beverages, in the world today. So I went there.
This was a global challenge, but obviously you were employed in South Africa, to be able to. So you went into Atlanta, and how was the experience of that deep dive?
I can tell you, I think everybody can say that in their first 3 months in a new job, it's a little bit of a blur. You hold on to maybe out of 100% of knowledge, you hold on maybe to 30% that you know is so key for your survival in the next 6 months, right? So that's what I did. I understood the sustainability model. And understood something to do with the brand purpose and positioning and what Coke is all about, and came back, started to work with the team. And later on, then the function changed. Then I started to be responsible for both sustainability and communication, right? So the two were working together, and also the brand PR, working with the marketing team on the brand PR. So when there are big marketing campaigns, then I'll be working on the PR side of things. So the whole thing of collaboration as well, I started to understand it in depth inside the Coca-Cola world. But the thing with Coca-Cola is it's so relentless that, when you work there, the pace is it's a really fast-paced environment. You really have to be on you have to be really serious about being a professional. And you have to have so much self-discipline around work and keep your competency always up there. And that's how you get to stay long in that company. You really have to deliver and be a reliable person in the organization. So and be a Coca-Cola ambassador. So my family had quite a lot around the sugar debate, the sugar tax debate. You have to explain at a given opportunity that, listen, Coke is not bad. It's everything in moderation. Yeah. I still remember the messaging even now, and I've left them like 3 years ago. But everything was based on science, and that was the great thing about it. Coca-Cola messages are thoroughly researched. You have to be able to back up everything you say, because you have so much, you have access to millions of people who are consuming your product. You do not want a situation where you're being questioned and you don't have an answer, So I remember when we did this big campaign that had the names of people on the packaging, right?
I was going to ask you about it,
Yeah, that was like amazing. And the creative campaign had actually the TV ad itself had the dog Bobby. I don't know if you remember that. Bobby was the star of the whole ad. And that creative thinking with Bobby as a star of the advert actually went on to other markets. I think about 25 countries took that very same creative concept and adapted it to their market, from Mexico, you name it, to England, everywhere. So again, it tells you how great South African talent and creativity can be and can just make brands. But anyway, let's go back to the campaign itself. I was talking about
that naming campaign where I'll see my name as Fundi. Okay, my name never made it into the list, but yeah, people would see their names there and they just want to buy as many as possible. Yeah.
It was collector's item, right? So that creative campaign actually started in Australia. So Australia was the first one to launch that creative campaign. So South Africa, we loved it. South Africa here, okay, bring it back. But of course, I was sitting on the other side of PR. So I had to think about what are the potential pitfalls we might face with this campaign. So then one of the potential pitfalls that we faced at the time was, how would we explain the selection of the names that were going to be used on the packaging?
Yeah.
So that was something we needed to be very clear about, right? Because we know South Africa is we have a vocal society that is always challenging corporates, So then came with the idea of, okay, because we knew that this campaign was targeting the born frees, because the born frees were identified as the future consumer of Coca-Cola products. So if you get the born frees, you'll know that sustainably into the future, you'll continue to have consumers of the Coca-Cola product. Okay. So then we approached, and I was leading that part, because then I still had people that I knew in this department in our government Home Affairs. So we approached them and said, look, we want to do this campaign targeting the bond freeze, and we are going to use the names on the packaging, but we want to have a science behind that. You know, if challenged, we want to satisfy ourselves that we've used a system that was fair. So we asked for the Department of Home Affairs to give us the top 100 names of the bond freeze, those who were born between 1994 and 1996. So they gave us that whole top names. And those were the names that were on the packs. So obviously your name was not going to be there, right?
Yeah, no, there's not many food dealers around.
So it was, you know, Tabo, Koketso, Mandla, you know, all those names. Exactly. Yeah. So that's the rigor around the brand. Every great brand has got to have certain elements of rigor around it, so that when questioned, you are able to still be able to show up as a brand that is in its fundamental state. It's about truth and honesty and fairness. You know. Yeah.
Now, as a consumer, you know, generally, you know, sometimes you guys do such a good job as the marketing and the PR, you know, teams. You know, you give us this promise as the consumers, but then you find that sometimes there's a gap between what you guys promise and what one experiences, you know, with a brand. And how do you guys deal with that? You know, I mean, they normally talk about marketing gaps, you know, the promise. Obviously, there's many gaps, you know, but I'm just talking about the first one. You promise something, and my first experience is not anywhere close to what you were promising, the brand promise.
So, you know, it's often said that, you know, people from Coca-Cola, you ask them one question, you ask one question to 20 different people from Coca-Cola, they almost give you the same answer. Yeah. So what does that mean? It means me as an outside person, I'm experiencing them in a very consistent way. The experience is the same. And that's how you build a brand. You need to start from inside with your employees. Them getting to understand certain things about the business and being very clear. If it's products, they need to know the products and what makes the product tick. So that's where you start the process of building that brand pride in your employees. And once you've done that, outside, wow, people, customers, when they see your people, your employees, they have the same experience, you know. And that experience, it's quite a tough thing to build internally. You have to be dedicated to doing that, and it takes time. And that's what is often referred to culture. So the experience inside an organization, be it government or private, it's the culture. So the culture is driven by the values of the organization. So if we are saying that we are Altron, and one of our values is transparency and being honest, and that's how we do business. Honest every time, you know, even when we're sitting around the table, we hold each other accountable to those values, those beliefs, right? Okay, great. People who do business with you, they will experience you the same way. If you really are being true to your beliefs, they will know that, oh, you know what? Go to people at Altron, they will always tell you the truth if they can do that or not. You know, they're not going to waste your time because they've experienced you in a consistent manner across the different levels, you know, from a receptionist to accounts to people. Yeah. So to have a brand dissonance where externally it's great and internally it's not great, it's something that can be addressed through culture, building the right culture, getting people to understand what the business is all about, and you know what the purpose of the organization is and what its intention. So those two, they work together. That's how you build a brand. You start from inside.
Okay. All right. So you stayed for whatever number of years. I'm not going to mention the number of years now. All right. And then
it was almost 5, can I say?
Almost 5.
It was 4 and 11 months.
But it was around that 4 year each. You know, in marriage, people talk about 7 years each, you know. Right. But anyway, okay. So you were on your next assignment. You know, you were looking for an opportunity to go and make a difference, and you know, and obviously grow in terms of your responsibilities and stuff. And so you raised your hand. Uh, when there was an opportunity at Altron. All right. You raised your hand, and what attracted you to say, okay, I'm leaving this top, beverages brand. I want to move now to a different industry that is into technology. I just want to know the attraction first, of remember, this is a company that has been around since, the apartheid days, did a lot of business during those days and all of
Yes,
that.
yes, yes.
And it was a big, very proud company, proud South African company, doing great things, but then it was starting to falter. So what was the attraction for you then?
Okay, so, you don't normally sit down and think, okay, after 4.5 years or after almost 5 years, I'm going to leave and go to a technology company that I've got absolutely no understanding of what they do. No, it doesn't work like that. So the opportunity came and I put my hand
Were
up.
you headhunted or was there an advert?
No,
I mean,
it was
people to level, there's executive recruiters and whatever. So how did you know about the opportunity?
So the Altron appointed a headhunting firm to get the potential candidates.
Yeah.
Actually, the recruiter contacted me via LinkedIn and said, "Do you know somebody who can do the job? Can you refer me?" You know, and I said, "I know the person, and it's
that
me."
person is me.
Yeah. So
I can do it. All right.
I'm telling you, I didn't know that I would get the job, but what I knew was that I could bring something different to this organization.
So
I applied, and it was a rigorous process. I mean, competing like absolutely rigorously with other candidates. And I remember there was so much pressure, me getting there on the day of the interview. And I wanted to be also on time. And I was using the Altron a lot. And then, they stole whatever they normally steal. And there were delays in Pretoria. Yeah. I was so stressed getting into the interview, but I made it on time, thankfully. Thanks to Uber. Yeah.
Yes, I was going to say, but there was an Uber that was idling out there as you were sitting inside the interview. Right.
Yeah. That day was so. I had to get the job because that day was so dramatic. But in any way, so it was a formal interview process, and I could see that there've been quite a couple of candidates before me, and still after me, I could see that they were going. Yeah. So I waited and waited, and then I got the news that I got the job. So first of all,
remember, you were going somewhere during that interview. You were doing the interview, but you were also going to Cape Town.
Oh, yes. So, I was still employed by Coca-Cola, obviously, and we're going to Parliament to really talk about this whole sugar tax thing, making the, public affairs kind of connections. And, so on the day, first of all, the Altron delayed, another stress factor, rushing to the interview. After the interview, I had to catch a flight. Okay. So everything went on time, but there were spikes of stress, but I had the Uber waiting for me to take me to the airport after the interview. And when I got into the Uber, I was like, oh, thanks God. Yeah, it's over.
How was the interview? Was it hectic?
Yes, it was tough. You need to remember that this is an executive role, okay? So I had made it my aspiration, and I had it written down somewhere that I would like to work as an executive for marketing at a listed company. So my decision to leave Coca-Cola was not far off from my dreams, So it was my aspiration, absolute goal, to work as a director of a listed organization in marketing. So when the opportunity came, I was like, okay, sector, I don't know, I learned the sector, but this is exactly what I've been wanting as an aspiration. So I moved. So the interview, I mean, it's that you're operating at an executive level in the interview already. I mean,
Yeah.
So I had to step up in terms of your thinking and presenting yourself. I mean, at the interview, you don't have solutions, right? Because you don't know much. You've read the annual report, you're able to converse, but you don't have the solutions. So the people who are interviewing you, they can make judgment that if she comes in, she can or she may not.
All right. So you got the job. How long did you have to wait to get the answer?
It was a very long day. So within 24 hours, very decisive leadership. Yeah.
Oh, well, okay, that's good. That's good. And so that meant you were going to be the first woman in the history of Altron to actually sit at that, at their group executive level.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, but getting into the organization, I mean, that was not my concern, right? My concern was getting to really, I needed to understand this sector quite quickly and the business. Because, at the interview, the CEO was so compelling with the vision, and where the organization was going and the strategy, and actually, it was so clear, crystal clear in terms of where the organization was going. Okay, I can't say other things, but when I joined, I almost had a sense of, what I needed to do and check with the leadership in terms of that was the right thing to do, and then start to get to understand the business first off. So being the first woman to be appointed into the executive, it's quite a responsibility as well, because you don't want to be the first person and then just go on and do their job. You want to be the first person to do something, and also be the first person to do something, but also root for other women to come and join around the table.
Yeah, and a few months later, you were followed by Dolores Mashishi, so at least you were not alone.
Exactly, not even for long. I think she joined after 3 months, so it was great. Yeah. So quite a big transition. I mean, it was my aspiration to work for a listed organization in that role. But then quite a lot of growth. First, you had to understand the industry and what needed to happen, the whole work around the repositioning and the new strategy. Yeah. But also at a personal level, also my growth was really understanding what it meant to be an executive, right? Your posture, in terms of how you connect with people around you. You're working for a listed organization. So you need to be careful about what you say to who, those kind of things. But nobody will teach you that. So you have to and that's the great thing about technology. Information is out there. It's right on your phone. You have to learn in terms of, what it means. But of course, you won't get it right the first time around. I remember the CEO, for those who don't know, the CEO of Altron is Mteto Nyati. The CEO, I think it was like in my second month or so, the CEO invited the executives to come and have, just like a meet and greet with the board, right? And at that point, I was still the only woman at that level. And we had drinks and, get to talk about how we seeing the business and all that. Very important kind of meet and greet, but with substance, okay? So after that, we took a picture. Okay, great. That's me in the middle with all, male executives and board members. Yeah, so I'm excited, right?
You were the only rose amongst thorns.
So the expression goes. Yeah. So there I was, posting that picture. Today we connected with the board of Altron. Boom, I put it on Facebook, and I didn't see that coming. I had comments, people saying, "You can't be the only woman. That organization is not progressive." And I tried to explain that, oh no, we are transforming. That, nobody could hear.
That must have been Twitter.
Now, as an executive, those are the kind of things you have to make certain judgment calls. Nobody will teach you. But then you start to learn, okay, fine, there's nothing wrong with this, but understand what could happen, what could go wrong. And so the growth for me has just really understanding what it means, and also having the opportunity to also do something that I had never really done, and dealing with investors, so those were huge, great opportunity at Altron, great learning curve for me at the same time. Yeah,
and I mean, you guys had to change the brand, to what we now see, which is nice and sleek and stuff, what's involved in actually changing? Remember now, when you guys came in, there were many companies within the group with different names, Bytes this and Altron that and whatever else, and you guys were talking one Altron strategy. So as the person who had to now get everybody behind one new brand, what did it take, to actually come to that level?
Yeah, I'm glad you're mentioning the new strategy, because that was actually is a guiding thing inside the organization. So doing a rebrand or rebranding or brand positioning, it just doesn't happen on its own. It's got to be guided by something. So the strategy, which is very clear about the purpose, and our purpose is around innovation, delivering that innovation that matters. But what is important about the strategy of Altron is the decision that we made to focus on technology as a company. Just focus on technology. That's what we're going to take to the market. For 52 years, the company was about a lot of things, power generation, manufacturing, and technology. Yeah. So we recognize that technology, the world and technology and the future growth, all that was, those two were working together. Growth in the economy globally was going to be driven by technology. And amongst other decisions, that's what drove the focus that we had on technology. So the strategy is that we focus on one thing, but because we have so many technology capabilities that we can sell, we bundle them together and we approach the customer with a proposition, a solution that is addressing a lot of their technology challenges, right? Yeah. So that's one Altron, meaning that you take everything you've got to package, and then you talk to the customer and look, this is what we can do for you around these technology issues, but also this is how we can help you to digitally transform your organization. So now you need the brand. Yeah. You can't do that with many brands, right? Because then you're going to confuse the customer. So you needed the customer experience that is aligning to this whole concept of one. So you needed a brand that will speak to that strategy. So in coming up with our brand, obviously we were already aware what the brand needed to deliver. One of the things was to really showcase us as a company that is about innovation, but also showcase us as a company that was no longer family owned, but that was independently run by an independent chief executive who's not part of the family. But also the most important thing was for us to really now speak to what the customer wants. The customer wants to deal with not many people in one organization. And that's how we then decided on our brand architecture. Our brand architecture was going to be a monolithic. And what do I mean by that? It meant that we have one name in our brand that everybody is associated with across the entire group. So Altron is a master brand, and all our organizations are either Altron System Integration or Nesta, a division of Altron, but Altron is the master brand. So now today is different to 3 years ago. Today at the market, to a very large extent, and we've done the research, understand us as Altron. They know that there are different companies within the Altron group, but they understand that you've got Altron and you've got the CEO, and he's got all these managing directors that are running the different businesses, but they are about this purpose and they are about 1, 2, 3. This is their strategy. So there's clarity now in the market in terms of what kind of technologies even are we then selling. So we've created with our brand, we've created clarity in the market. We've delivered on that singular experience of us. that is aligned to the strategy. So that's what we have done with this.
So again, for people like me, I'm just an ordinary doctor. Ne? So now you've got that thing, innovation that matters. Innovation that matters.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, what goes through coming up with something like that? You know?
Yeah.
A
Okay.
tagline, basically. What goes
Yeah.
through
So
coming with a tagline as part of the brand building?
okay. So innovation that matters is our purpose, right?
Yeah.
So our tagline is there when it matters.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that's our tagline. It's our brand promise. That's what we are promising to the customer, that we will always be an organization that shows up when you need them with the different technology solutions for different challenges. We will be the one you can trust, right there when you need us the most. Turn to us, turn to Altron. We'll be there when it matters for you. When you really, really do need us, you need to achieve a certain transformation with your digital strategy inside a financial institution or inside the bank. You want to cut costs using technology. You want to increase the efficiency of delivering services to the public using technology. Where do you go? Go to Altron. We have the answer.
And during in the middle of the COVID-19 thing, I'm sorry to interject. In the middle of the COVID-19 thing, I think we're in level 5 or still level 4. Some of your guys, they actually came up with some video, showing exactly that they are there when it mattered, when everyone else was locked up, but they were there to help your clients to make sure that things happen. Yeah.
Yeah. And how did it come about? How did it come about? We are an organization that is about innovation. Yeah. So we say that we'll develop innovation that matters, not innovation just for innovation's sake, but innovation that matters. Now that's the purpose and that's the culture. And we are not, we actually have something that we call the Chief Executive Series. It's a competition that runs across the organization every year, where employees are invited to put forward ideas that are driving innovation, So we are always thinking about innovative ways of doing things. So ideas are part of who we are. We're always about ideas and innovative ways. So hence our colleagues, when they were out there in the market, helping the companies and businesses that were delivering essential services, they felt free to can come up with a video and then share it. It doesn't happen on its own. It's because we have that, latitude of encouraging creativity and getting our people to come with stuff that's exciting.
Yeah.
But with COVID-19, right, we had to move very fast in terms of understanding, amongst us ourselves as an organization, which employees, we are 8,500. So there needed to be a lot of work that went on, that which groups of employees are going to continue working, because we know that the government had identified the sectors that needed to continue because they were offering essential services. And that happened quite swiftly. And those employees that you saw during the video in Cape Town, they are some of the employees that were delivering essential services. So they were out there in the market.
And for you as the marketing person there, what did that video mean to you now? I mean, obviously, there's a spirit that you guys have created to enable your people to just come up with a video, which was actually beautiful.
Yeah, and actually, one of our values is, do good work inside the organization and have fun while doing that. Yeah. So that is one of our values. So it's not surprising to see employees in the course of work now being automatically thinking about something creative that they can do.
Okay.
But also there was one, but we also had a video that was professionally made by the marketing team. Yes, together with all our operations. Then we had to find out where were the touch points that we delivered in the market during the hard lockdown. And then we created a story around those touch points where we were in as an organization, driving the economy together with our customers. Yeah.
All right, but you guys are not only in South Africa, though. You are also in the UK, you're also in Australia. And so the work that you do, how much of it has to do with stuff in those areas as well?
So the technology that we have, for instance, I'll just give an example with our business in the UK. So our business in the UK is a Microsoft business. So we also have a division here in South Africa, Altron Carabiner, that is also a Microsoft business. So our strategy is relevant across our global footprint. In Australia, we have Nesta operations, and Nesta here at home is known for vehicle tracking. But there's much more actually. There's also the telematics side of Nesta, and that we also deliver in Australia. So our business, the strategy is one. It's very, very seamless. In the rest of the African continent, we have presence in about 6 countries in the rest of Africa, and we're taking, you assume, okay, let's give an example with a business that has got operations in the rest of the African continent, and we support them here with the technology in South Africa. So what we'll do is would then continue to work with them in those African markets to ensure that we can still continue to give them the technology, services, and solutions they require. So it's a continuous kind of ensuring that they experience us the same way, they achieve the same financial goals using our technology in all these markets in Africa.
So you guys I listened to your CEO in one of his book series, where he gets invited by people. He's released his book, So
#1 bestseller.
Yes, #1. I'm sure it's on its 5th print now or something like that. But anyway, but he was saying you guys had a plan that by year 3 you will have achieved this, and by year 5 you will have achieved that. And you are saying actually you guys achieved most of those things, before time.
So exactly. I can explain that.
And sorry to interject there. And also, in the JSE, you guys for 2 years running, your shares were the best performing in the technology sector, right? What does it say to you guys? What does it mean to you guys?
You know what? It only means that we have done a good job turning around the company. #1. And #2 is that we've been able to actually create more jobs. We have grown, so we continue to offer employment opportunities, right? But also we have made some wise decisions in terms of the acquisitions that we've made. We have identified areas of growth for our kind of company. One of them is security. And last year we bought a really great business that is going to ensure that we scale up in terms of security. So it's pride, but also it means that now you can't let your foot off the pedal. You have to, accelerate and start thinking about what about after the next 5 years? What's going to happen? But I think it's a great success story, given the history of the company that was once so strong. It was a darling of the JSE, and it experienced some really tough times, and it's back just this year. Our share was actually identified by the Financial Mail as the best share to buy. So we are back up.
So there's so much that you guys, obviously you have to be proud of. And then COVID happened though, and COVID has disrupted everywhere. I'm not going to talk about that. I think let's leave that part. And I think for me now, looking at how much interaction, you were talking about the culture of the company, the values and whatever. As a person in charge of marketing, how much interaction is there between you and the executive in charge of people, in terms of driving those things, because I would assume to change culture and embed values, you have to work very closely with the executive, in this case, Ms. Dolores Mashishi, yeah?
Yeah, absolutely. So, you know, and it's quite well understood that, you know, culture is not, you know, building a great culture. It's just not the responsibility of human capital.
Yes.
It's everyone's responsibility in the organization. And human capital, of course, they are the guardian of culture and they drive it. But the way we have approached it in Altron is that first and foremost, you know, our chief executive is really about the values. You know, you reach alignment at the values level, then, you know, the culture begins to form and the brand experience begins to happen in the market. So with Dolores, we're working quite well together because we come with the creative expression of the work she wants to do. So if she wants to do this, and, you know, we come up with the creativity and how to best do it. Can we do it via digital or posters, you know, those kind of things. So we bring in the communication and the expression into the organization. But, you know, there's quite clarity in the executive that everyone is responsible for living the values. And, you know, we did quite a lot of work last year in terms of explaining these values, in terms of the behaviors. You know, it's one thing to know what transparency is all about, but another thing to know, as Zipporah, for me to live that value of transparency, how do I need to behave at work, even outside work, you know? So we then come up with explaining those values and getting them into the organization creatively for people to understand and for it to stick. Yeah.
All right. Okay. Now, I want us to just reflect back now on your career to date.
Yeah.
As a woman, you know, going into all of these different companies, have you experienced difficulties that have to do with, I would say, patriarchy, maybe even racism, you know, and how did you negotiate those things, you know, to be able to continue, you know, growing?
Yeah, so at the beginning of my career, I decided early on that I was going to be fiercely competitive. I was going to be very good, you know, and I was going to create an environment and follow certain principles around work that will enable me to just be great at what I do. I continued with that. But as you go into maybe a different level of leadership, and you then start to appreciate the power of openness. You know, you can be good in everything and everybody see that you're good, but if somebody wants to undermine you, they'll undermine you. Okay. If they want to sort of like you know, just speak over you, they will continue to do that, you know. So then for me, it's really appreciate the whole concept that we undermine of face-to-face conversations. Really sitting around the table and being able to talk to the other person and say, look, with how you are behaving, this is how I'm experiencing you. I'm a Black woman. So with your behavior as a white man, this is how I feel. And I do not like it. It's got to end. What can we do about it? The conversation helps, you know. You don't need to
confrontation.
Well, I mean, I'm not a confrontational person by nature. I'm quite gentle.
I'm talking about the other side that you are addressing.
Yes, because nobody is ever ready for a face-to-face conversation. You'll be surprised, you know. Nobody's ever ready for that kind of thing. So you have to, even me, I'm never ready for that kind of thing. So I have to get myself into a very uncomfortable position. But I can't keep quiet about it because, you know, if I feel that I'm being undermined or somebody is just really being discriminatory in their behavior towards me, I need to be able to talk about it. It's not a simple thing in my experience so far, from what I've seen, you know, and this whole thing of feedback, right? You know, and I've had a concept, feedback feet. You know,
Yeah.
so we go to gym, we train and all that, but are we feedback fit? Are we able to get feedback? You know, so it's something that I'm always consistently working towards, being able to have the tough conversation, you know, and being able to really get it back as well from the other side. Because you can complain about discrimination, lack of opportunities. No, nobody's going to solve that for you. You know, at some point, you just have to take it upon yourself to confront it. It's not easy. Every single day is a challenge to confront an issue like that one, because it's about the experience and the perception. The other person might not, you know, today we talk about unconscious bias, right? So the other person might not even realize that they are being undermining to you or discriminatory. But so it's better to just have the matter on the table and talk about it.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to ask you, and I hope you'll answer this one. You know, there is a perception out there that ladies who look beautiful, maybe they go up not because of the content of what's between their ears, but because of the, you know, their packaging. Now, I'm sure you fall into that group of, you know, the packaging that you know can even be on a ramp. Now, how have you dealt with that so that people take you seriously?
I become very good at what I do. That's a decision I took a long time ago, that I was going to be so extremely good and I was going to work hard at my craft and take it seriously and be able to be somebody who's reliable, not just be good, but also have certain values, be reliable, show up the right way, you know. So do everything, you know, to dispel, because those are stereotypes, right?
Yes.
So so stereotypes, how do you kill them? By becoming good, very good. You know, you almost drive yourself to the level of perfection. It's not a good thing to do, but because you really want to dispel those perceptions, then you drive yourself in a certain way. You believe in certain work ethic. You prescribe to certain behaviors, how you conduct yourself at the workplace, and how you show up. You strive to reach certain behavioral patterns that you believe will kill the stereotype, because the stereotype needs to be killed, just like the stereotype of women and technology, you know. So women and technology, we can also master technology. The stereotype that we can't manage technology needs to be killed. So it's upon us as women to empower ourselves with technology so that we dispel the stereotype. But other than the stereotype, you know, there's a transformative power in technology in terms of really being able to live and enhance how you live your life with the power of technology.
Okay, beautiful, beautiful. All right, now, but you've told us a lot of good things about how marketing and communication can be such a benefit, you know, in terms of building brands and everything else. But we also know that some of the rogue marketing and or maybe communication people can also do damage. I mean, we've been hearing a lot about Bell Pottinger, you know, the ones who came with the concept of white monopoly capital, monopoly capital, and we all assimilated it, and it was, you know,
it's now part of our language and
part of our language, and we even now know this week,
certain decisions.
Yeah, we know this week that actually their involvement in South Africa even started before '94. So, what happened? I mean, you know, you've been telling us about communication being used for good, but there we saw communication being used for bad. And I'm sure those people come maybe from the same chartered institute, you know, of UK. So, I mean, how does one make sure that people use their communication skills, strategies, and whatever to build rather than destroy? And if you have to engage an agency to assist you to do work, you know, for Altron, I mean, how do you make sure that they don't go rogue and actually cause harm?
So the first thing with agencies, and you know, based on my career, I've worked with different agencies different times at different levels, right? But I'll just use the example of Altron, because that's where I'm at right now. So the key thing, and we have a number of agencies that we work with at a long-term basis. But the key thing, when you contract with an agency, they need to quickly start to respect you as somebody who knows so much about your business that you will guide the thinking and monitor it. Once an agency starts to run ahead of you and they start to understand your business more than they do, then you lose the ability to monitor the quality of where the creative campaign could be going and how they're going to be projecting a brand. Because now they are so all over you that you hardly can even put your head up because you don't know. So for the agency to gain respect of you and your brand, you as the leader, marketing director, you need to understand a lot about your business. And how do you ensure that they experience you as a person who understands the business? You need to give them a deep dive. You need to spend time with your agency, getting them to understand who you're all about, what your purpose, and what the communications, what is the strategic solution that the communications needs to deliver. So the Bell Pottinger story, it's really about an agency that came into South Africa and found fertile ground where no one was protecting what South Africa's dream was all about and our constitution. So they came in and they found, okay, in actual fact, the intentions, the solutions that we're looking for were not solutions that were meant to build the country. The solutions that were meant to, so they did what they did. And we know that that business doesn't exist now, right? Yeah. So it goes on to show that if the intention of your actions in business, if they're not good, really, you don't have a runway. Your business will soon collapse. If your business is not based on values, you'll soon go, collapse. And we've seen with Bell Pottinger. But an agency is as good as the people inside the organization. Yeah. So inside the organization, you need to be very strong about what you actually need. And you need to, as marketing person, you can't just take all the decisions. You need, right up to the chief executive to always connect with the chief executive about the work that you're doing, because the business is not owned, the brand is not owned by the executive for marketing, it's owned by everybody, so you need to have those consultations. I mean, we've seen instances where big brands had to pull out campaigns out of the market because the campaign went live and, oh my goodness, member of the board saw this and they felt that there was a disconnect and they had to pull it out. So you need to avoid that by consulting and by understanding the business yourself and what needs to be achieved with the work. Yeah.
So for young people who aspire to follow your journey, we're going towards wrapping up now. For young people who are, looking at, following your journey as a Marcoms, expert, what would you say are the 3 or 4 qualities that make a good Marcoms person?
Mm-hmm. First, they need to be curious and nurture their creativity. Yeah. So that's one thing that they need to really, nurture. Being creative and curious and always reading this and that. That's number one. But number 2, they need to have a set of beliefs and values that define them in terms of what they stand for. So if you have a task at hand from a very early age, you have to do it. If you are being asked to do something, every single bit of it, it doesn't matter, maybe organizing an event, but you have to be so very good at it that, when you sit back and look at it, you feel so proud. Having that sense of pride in your work, that's what drives good results, because you don't want to you don't want to disappoint people who trust you to do something great, so having all those ethics and values, and the last one really is to, you should always look at yourself and think, how can I continue to improve and learn? You might not necessarily want to go and do a master's in marketing, but you can find ways of investing time in learning. You know, today we've got LinkedIn, we've got podcasts, we've got websites. Some courses are free at
online.
top institutions like MIT. You know, you have a lot of learning that you can do. So that is how you really need to. But the good thing is really sticking to those things that you believe will define you, like your work ethic and being reliable, and really be scared of disappointing people who trust you. Because once you have that, you know, you will always outdo yourself.
Right. About a month or so ago, you actually presented at some global thing. You know, just tell us a little bit about that. I'm going to go to your kids here because I want to now hear that, you know, whether you're a good mom or not.
Yeah. So
I want to hear from them. But just, you know, I know you posted about it and it looked like it went well. But what was it about?
Yes. So it was the Global Communication Summit. It is run by the Independent Association of Business Communicators. So it's got thousands and thousands of members across the world. So I've been involved with them, I think, since 2010. I've been part of the jury for a number of, you know, sort of like awards competitions they've been running on the best communications campaigns and all that. And obviously, they've been following me. Their head office is based in England. So they've been following me in terms of my work and all that. Yeah, and absolutely, they were completely impressed by the story of Altron and how we came about with the brand repositioning and just the linkage between the strategy and the brand. They just found it to be so aligned, and they wanted to hear about it. Yeah, so that's how I got invited to participate, and it was just really encouraging. Global summit, and I was the only marketing executive from Africa to participate.
In the middle of a lockdown.
In the middle of the lockdown, you know, I was going there to talk about Altron and how the brand, you know, showed up to support the strategy. And then they started asking me about how we started to be prepared with COVID-19 in Altron. What did we do and all that, you know?
Planning and stuff.
Pardon?
I'm saying scenario planning and all of the things.
Yes, absolutely. Communications. I mean, communications, if you look at it across the world, communications has been the most defining thing for how we got to manage COVID-19, you know. But again, the leadership of the organization, the leadership in government needed to understand the value that communication will bring, you know.
Yeah. My last question to you, but think about it, because I want to go to the two young ones. I believe now that with this COVID-19 pandemic in South Africa, communication at all levels, you know, fell short in a big way, to an extent that the people on the ground at times were confused. Even now, there's level 2, people think that the virus is gone. And I think that's a sign of poor communication. I want you to tell me, what are the 3 things that should have been done better in the government communication so that the masses actually understand what is happening and actually adhere to the precautions and all of those kind of things. But let me go to Tsegofatso. Tsegofatso, can you unmute yourself, please?
Hi.
Oh
my gosh. Okay, hold on. I wasn't expecting to talk to them.
You see, when you have a mom like her, she must have taught you by now to just be able to show up whenever you're expected to show up. So we've been talking to your mom for the last almost 2 hours. And, you know, what do you think of her?
What do I think of her?
Yes. No, okay, she doesn't hear what you're going to say. It's just me and you. You know. What do you think of her? You know, but honestly, that's not though. How has she been in terms, what values have you taken from her that will become your compass going into your future?
I think the most important one is her integrity. That's the one that I've really taken from her, because she always wants to do the right thing and be transparent. And in my business dealings, it's helped with ensuring that I continue to have that same moral compass as her. Yes. So
Okay.
that's a yeah.
So the transparency they talk about at Altron, so she practices at home as well.
Yes.
At home, transparency, ne?
She does. Yeah, she teaches us that it's good to go to bed knowing that you can sleep at night and not having to deal with any guilt or any lies that may lay heavy on you. So it's just really, yeah.
But your mom, like all of us, she can't be perfect. What do you think is that one thing that she needs to work on? You know, not necessarily values, but just, you know, as a mom, you know, that's one thing that she can work on. You know,
I think, yeah.
more marks. Eh?
I think that her work can sometimes stress her out. So she probably needs to find a way to find an outlet to release the stress. So that's one thing that, yeah, it's taken up a lot of her time.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
To balance work and life, though, you know.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're not complaining about her unavailability because she's always busy with work.
I wouldn't say I'm complaining, but at least now during the lockdown, I think I've had enough time with her.
Lovely.
Yeah.
All right, no, but thank you very much. There is also I've just forgotten the name, and it's on a iPhone. Must be one of your siblings. Puseleto. Yeah, Puseleto, can you unmute yourself, please? Puseleto. No, you must come.
This is quite a surprise.
Hello. I won't be showing my camera, but then are you able to hear me?
You see, I'm asking you to switch on your camera. Now you are refusing. Eh?
Yes, I'm definitely refusing.
I'm an old person.
Puseletso, do the right thing.
The camera. I believe a camera.
No, you see, I'm definitely refusing. Just like my mother, I'm a perfectionist.
Puseletso, that's okay. You know, you see, this is how you've taught them to be able to stand their ground and not
exactly.
Whether somebody is old or not, they're not going to use age to push them to do something they don't want to do. So I understand her and I agree with her. So Puseletso, you know, you've been listening. I've been talking to your mom for the last almost 2 hours now.
Yes.
Yeah. What would you say about the conversation? Is there anything new that you learned or got to know more about your mom? You know, if you had...
You know, I'd actually like to see that picture. She's never showed me that picture of her and Nelson Mandela and the captain at the time. I've never seen it, so I'd like to see that iconic moment.
She must go to her box and find that picture, you know, because you know, during their days, you know, they'll take photos and then they put them in an album, which was like physical album. So she must go and find that album, dust it up and find the
And
photo.
you know, Dr. Nyati, what I really enjoyed is she was able to share with you a few her upbringing and lessons that, you know, she was able to learn from my grandfather, who has been, you know, an exceptional role model to my sister and I. So, you know, he's been a big part of our lives. So just to hear her, you know, just share with you a few things, that's lovely.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
I asked your sister, Tserofatso, you know, what is that one thing that your mom needs to work on? You know, she can't be perfect. None of us are perfect. So I want to hear from your point of view, what is that one thing that you think your mom needs to brush on?
Okay, so before I go on to that one thing, let me just, mention something about my mom that, as my sister said, integrity is something that, she really goes by. So that's something she's been teaching us from, a very young age, especially with the upbringing we had where we were exposed to, moving to England, many different cultures and, different people, we were exposed to many different things, wonderful things from a young age. So integrity was something she always made sure that we were, upholding. But, one thing that she could work on, and, there aren't many at all. There aren't many. My mom is very close to perfect.
Yeah.
But one thing she could work on would be, I would love to see my mom. She's into the arts and she's
yes.
very refined. She's cultural, but I'd love to see her spend more time with, just spend more time traveling, and
No, but
relaxing with her friends.
because I'm working to at Altron, she can't be traveling,
But there's a balance. She needs to, have a balance. She's a bit of a overworker,
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And what's nice is that Altron has now adopted a work from home situation. So maybe she can actually move around a bit.
Okay.
Find a few work visas that are now available and maybe work from Jamaica.
All right. Lovely. Thank you guys. All right. Zipporah, I know I'd left you with a question, but your love for art, whenever I see high-end art pictures, I'll see Mandla Sbeko, and I'll see what's the Upulani Kingston, and I'll see the wife to Tiko, Ukolisa Thomas, So this small tight group of people who have got a liking for the, nice art, the stuff that needs, creativity to appreciate. So yeah, where did it come from? I mean, enjoy with the
I think it's about being curious and creativity. Creativity extends itself in different ways. So if you grow up, you're being curious, and at a young age, you're reading high-end magazines like Vanity Fair, Vogue. Then you're still young, you're in Hammerscrub, but you've got an awareness that there are these other things that are happening, and you start to imagine.
Yes.
So you nurture your interest. You're not born with these things, but as you understand what you like, people like golfing, and it's also high-end sport, very expensive. But actually, Hammerscrall once had a good number of artists. I'm still doing the little bit of research on them. And if you look at artists, from music to painting to all that, it's actually inherently being pretty much a Black thing, So it's just the commercialization of our work that has now, elevated it to something that is beyond reach for our communities, and it should not be. So the people you've mentioned have made this at their business. So I think they are looking at certain things that can happen so that art and expression and how to be an artist can be accessible to people. And I love it. When I'm in that space, I just like
that's one of the spaces where you distress.
I transcend into another space. I don't know what it is, but I know it's such a great space for me to be at. And looking out for artists at every now and then, and not being married to one, because art is about expression and understanding what artists are trying to communicate to society with their work. So just continuously looking, and I've discovered one here in my neighborhood in Irene, and I'm absolutely, so yeah, excited about the artist.
All right. Please answer my question then. Looking as a comms expert, looking at how South Africa has handled communication around COVID-19, from the time there was a declaration of state of disaster, to lockdown on the 26th of March, to now, what are the just 3 things that you would say these would have been done better?
Okay, so I'll just give a bit of background. Because as Altron, we have operations in other markets. We already, by the time, we went into lockdown, I think, around March? When did we go into
26th of March, the lockdown.
Yes, absolutely. But already at Altron, we're monitoring these other markets where we're having operations in terms of how they were managing, COVID-19 and the communication. So already we were sensitizing, but with a specific plan for our operation. But because this is something that is driven by governments all over the world, the communication, I was able to see how other governments are delivering on this. And when we started here in South Africa, one thing that we missed was the opportunity to create layers of communication. Okay, so we started very well, quite quickly, firmly with the president and making the announcement. But then during the time the president spoke and the next time that he will be speaking, there's this lull, void. And we missed the opportunity to really get the premiers in the provinces, the mayors in the cities to take charge of the communication, and missing the opportunity to use digital, right?
Yeah,
that is such a big missed opportunity, but I think we can still make up for that.
There were still those meetings that I'm not gonna use the words that people use on social media, but Dr. Nkosazana, she would come in 3 days after the president has spoken and try to fill the void. But I hear your point though. Yeah.
And there's so many elements to this communication that you can be so creative. I mean, now the whole COVID-19 narrative is taken over by the corruption around the PPE.
Yeah.
Now we are in lockdown. We should be just really getting the messages around what it means to be in level 2. Sorry.
Yeah.
What it means for, next week Monday, for instance, the gyms are opening. What does it actually mean? It's just so lacking, but I think it can be corrected, particularly if the government can embrace digital channels as the way to reach communities
and radio.
And radio. But who listens to radio if they're not in the car? A lot of people have got the digital. I can tell you that people in townships have got phones with them all the time. In villages, they all have phones.
All right. South Africa is actually in serious trouble economy-wise, and we need every possible positive to be communicated out there to attract investors.
That's right.
And also to encourage us in the country to actually support the industries that have been hard hit, like tourism and all of that. What needs to be done to actually give confidence out there, but also get South Africans to actually be part of lifting up, helping to turn around the dire situation economy-wise?
So, I'm in an organization right now at Altron where we are so guided by the strategy, and the vision of the organization. So I think here in South Africa, we need the president to start talking much more about the vision and the strategy, and now start to position him outside of South Africa to bring in that foreign direct investment that we all need. We need a global strategy on positioning South Africa outside of the country for there to be an understanding of what we are doing about critical things like corruption. What is the plan because corruption now is so endemic, So people who want to invest, I think the number one thing that turns them off is corruption more than any other thing. Even if you've got low levels of education in your workforce or in your community, in your society, but if you have low education levels, but you don't have corruption as a driving thing, companies will come and invest.
Yeah.
But with us, corruption is the number one thing. I mean, they publish every year that list of corrupt nations, right?
Yeah.
So we need to just make sure that we don't go up to the top 20 or the top 30.
Yeah.
And the other thing as well, we need to look at the barriers of getting young people in particular to start their business. The barriers, yeah. So, and we know that technology is reducing those barriers, and how can we ensure that we have that technology infrastructure for young people to get into the economy and participate fully and drive the change and transformation that we all want to see. So those are the kind of, and when you have that kind of story and you start telling it to foreign investors, they start to find the interest. I mean, look at Kenya has positioned itself so well around being the Silicon Valley of Africa. And it's going so well for them because they were quite clear in terms of inviting, these tech entrepreneurs into their country and ensuring that they can develop and come up with innovative stuff without, reducing certain tax and making certain concessions for them.
But then before such happens, there must be a choice made about which industries, if we focus on, would make the biggest difference. In South Africa, I don't think we have done that kind of exercise, where we've got a competitive advantage, where if we invest in those things and push those things, then it would make the biggest difference. It would address our unemployment. It will give us this and that, So, I mean, we could learn from Kenya. We could learn from Rwanda,
But there's one thing common with those two countries, Rwanda and Kenya, how fast they've gone with the technology and bringing technology into the government public sector environment. They have embraced it quite quickly, especially Rwanda. There's so much of technology that is driving what they do. So we need that in South Africa, public sector and private sector. We need the embracing of technology to drive things. We've seen what we don't even need to be saying anything. With technology, there's so many opportunities for everyone.
Yeah. Anyway, I think at this point, I need to thank you. One thing I normally ask ladies that have been my guests is, what are they doing to lift up other ladies? The Lift As You Rise. Upra Bonang wrote a book about lifting as you rise. Yes. So as you are rising, Zipporah, what are you doing to make sure that you're not the only one who goes up there and then you kick the ladder and other people can go up?
Doc, I would like that same question to be asked to men, This whole thing that women go up and kick the ladder, it's not true. Again, these are certain myths that are so directed to certain gender, but I can say that I do make myself available to young females in particular, and I've got a gentleman, two of them actually, that have asked me to mentor them. Yeah. So I do make time, and I try to be very consistent. But what I have found challenging is, on the other side, the young people are not consistent, right? So you agree that, okay, you come to my office at Altron, we meet for an hour every quarter, okay? So, one person will do it once or twice and never follow up. But I'm very impressed with one young lady. She's following up. Even this year, we had a Zoom meeting, and we had a discussion. So it's being accessible to young people. It's something that I make time to do. Yeah, I don't have a foundation.
Yes, no, it's okay. I don't think you have to have a foundation to make a difference. I mean, in the company that you work for, how would you actually describe your leadership style or approach to leadership. Nje, in 1 or 2 words. I don't want just an essay,
Yeah, yeah. So a winning team.
Yeah. So you are a team player.
And winning.
Yeah, a winning one. Yeah. So you're not Bafana. All right. Anyway, Zipporah, I think we've gone beyond time, but I want to thank you for making time to chat with me. There is so much that you've shared. There are so many pearls of wisdom that anybody who's been listening and is interested to follow your path, even if they are in other areas, they will have learned something. I was quite happy to also hear from your little ones.
That's a surprise. That's a
who
surprise.
are not little anymore. They can stand their ground. When there was a time when people were scared. If a doctor says do this, they just do it because the injection was following. Now the doctor says switch on your camera, and she chooses.
Dr. Nyati, it was such an honor speaking to you. It was an honor speaking to you. And you know what? Next time I get to chat to you,
Yeah.
I'll make sure that I am camera ready.
Beautiful. Thanks, Pusiletso. And Chegofato, thank you very much. And in my broken pedi, I must say, kudu kamata. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very much. All right. Thank you to all our viewers who joined us. I really enjoyed this conversation with Zipporah, and I hope you did as well. Thank you. Until next time.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Sure. All right.